What if the person who could ruin you shared your last name? Taquari Hatch, brother of rapper Boosie Badazz, just dropped a bomb that's shaking the entire hip-hop world. In a bold and unexpected move, Taquari is now accusing Boosie of playing a role in the shocking setup and murder of Duke the Jeweler, a respected figure whose tragic death left fans demanding answers. And to make things worse, Taquari claims he's got receipts, but Boosie isn't taking this lying down. His response? Blistering, public, and aimed straight back at his own flesh and blood. This isn't just a family feud, it's a firestorm of betrayal, accusations, and unanswered questions that go way deeper than anyone imagined. And it all started the night Duke was killed. It was supposed to be just another high-stakes dice game, something that happens all the time in hip-hop circles. Duke the Jeweler, known for working with some of the biggest names in rap, had just attended a Boosie concert in Houston. Afterward, he joined a private gathering that included rappers, entourages, and a lot of cash on the table. But before the night was over, Duke was gone. Shortly after leaving the event, Duke was followed, ambushed, and shot. His body was found near his vehicle, and the news of his death sent shockwaves across social media. Fans were stunned, and whispers started almost immediately. Why was he targeted? Who knew he was carrying cash and jewelry? And most importantly, how did someone get close enough to pull it off? What made it worse was Boosie's name being thrown into the mix. Not because he pulled the trigger, but because the gathering happened under his watch. That was enough for the internet to light the match. But no one expected that the person who'd throw gasoline on that fire would be Boosie's own brother. Out of nowhere, Taquari Hatch stepped into the spotlight, and he wasn't pulling punches. In a now viral interview, Taquari claimed that the Duke the Jeweler situation wasn't random. According to him, it was a setup, and the person connected to it, his own brother, Boosie. Taquari didn't just suggest foul play, he outright said Boosie knew what was going to happen that night. The internet erupted. Taquari hinted at private conversations, behind-the-scenes drama, and alleged cover-ups. He even claimed to have proof, though he hasn't released it yet. Screenshots, messages, and details that, if true, could change everything. But the most shocking part? He didn't seem afraid. He looked straight into the camera and said what most people wouldn't even whisper. Some say it's a desperate grab for attention. Others believe he knows too much and finally cracked under the weight of the truth. Either way, his accusation struck a nerve, and the fallout was immediate. Because once you publicly accuse someone of betrayal, especially someone with Boosie's reputation, there's no going back. And Boosie wasn't about to let that slide. Boosie didn't waste time. As soon as Taquari's claims started circulating, he clapped back, and he did it with fire. He took to social media, calling his brother a liar, a clout chaser, and worse. In one post, Boosie said, "You crossed the line. Ain't no coming back from that." His frustration wasn't just visible, it was explosive. He painted Taquari as someone bitter, desperate, and disconnected from reality. But it wasn't just about defending his name. Boosie seemed genuinely hurt. In several rants, he brought up past family issues, money disputes, and long-standing resentment. To Boosie, this wasn't just betrayal, it was a calculated character assassination. And he wasn't alone. Some fans and fellow artists rallied behind him, saying it was absurd to think Boosie would orchestrate something so dark. Others, though, weren't so quick to dismiss Taquari's words. The silence from people who were at the dice game that night only added to the tension. What started as a tragedy had now become a full-on war between brothers. And with Boosie on the defensive, the next question wasn't just about guilt, it was about survival. Because once the internet smells blood, it doesn't let up. Once the story broke, social media turned into a war zone. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everyone had something to say. Some people called Taquari brave for speaking out. Others labeled him a backstabber. Threads of conspiracy theories exploded overnight, with amateur sleuths piecing together timelines, video clips, and screenshots from Boosie's own accounts. Hashtags like Justice for Duke and Boosie Exposed began trending, and YouTubers jumped on the drama, breaking down Taquari's every word like a court transcript. Meanwhile, meme pages had a field day, turning one of hip-hop's darkest moments into viral content. But the wildest part? No one knew who to believe. Some fans pointed to Duke's last Instagram stories, claiming his tone seemed anxious. Others claimed Boosie had too much to lose to be that reckless. A few even speculated that Taquari was being used, pushed into the spotlight by bigger forces trying to ruin Boosie's legacy. And in the middle of all the noise, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a personal feud anymore. It was a public spectacle, a digital courtroom where reputation could be shredded with just one post. But behind all the chaos online, real investigators were starting to pay attention. With the internet in a frenzy and accusations flying, law enforcement couldn't ignore it any longer. Houston authorities confirmed they were reviewing new tips related to Duke the Jeweler's murder, some of which, according to insiders, came after Taquari's public statements. The whispers had become loud enough to spark movement. Suddenly, a case that was beginning to go cold had heat on it again. Investigators reportedly revisited footage from the dice game, security cameras near the scene, and social media activity in the hours before Duke's death. While no formal charges have been brought against Boosie, the renewed attention has definitely put a spotlight back on everyone involved that night. Meanwhile, Boosie's past legal troubles resurfaced in the public conversation, cases he had long left behind, now being reanalyzed through a new lens. Every old headline, every courtroom appearance, every mugshot, it all came back, fueling speculation. And Taquari? He hinted that more information could be coming. Whether that's bluff or fact, it's enough to make investigators cautious and fans curious. Because if Taquari really does have more proof, the legal storm may just be beginning. But as Boosie faces public scrutiny and potential legal fallout, there's something else hanging in the air: what this means for his career. For Boosie, this wasn't just about clearing his name. It became a fight for survival in an industry that's quick to crown kings, and even quicker to cancel them. In the immediate aftermath of Taquari's accusations, the ripple effect was impossible to ignore. Promoters began to quietly withdraw. Festival lineups that once proudly featured Boosie suddenly looked different. Interview requests dried up. Even longtime collaborators, rappers who had once shouted him out in verses, went radio silent. Boosie, a man known for his raw and unfiltered authenticity, now found himself under a microscope. Everything from past lyrics to old interviews was being rewatched and reinterpreted through a darker lens. Critics and fans alike began asking, was there always something hiding in plain sight? But while the industry pulled back, Boosie didn't. He went harder. In a string of defiant social media rants and new music releases, Boosie didn't hold back. He called out his brother, addressed the haters, and turned his pain into punchlines. Songs laced with emotion and fire began hitting streaming platforms, some seemingly aimed directly at Taquari, others sounding like warnings to anyone thinking of crossing him. Still, something had shifted. Even Boosie's most loyal followers began to split into factions. One side believed him without question, viewing him as the latest victim of a smear campaign. The other side wasn't so sure. They weren't accusing him, but they weren't defending him either. They were watching, waiting, suspicious. And then came the silence from his camp. No legal action against Taquari, no press conference, no real proof to counter the damage done. Just music, just Instagram lives, just emotion. For some fans, that wasn't enough. The music industry is no stranger to controversy. But this felt different, because this wasn't an outsider accusing Boosie, it was family, blood, and even in hip-hop, where betrayal is often lyrical, this was personal. Boosie now walks a tightrope. Every new move is judged, every lyric dissected, every facial expression in an interview becomes potential evidence for internet detectives. His entire legacy is under review, not just by fans, but by a culture that has seen too many artists fall too fast. And here's the hardest truth. Even if Boosie is innocent, some stains don't wash off. Accusations like this stick. They linger. They make people uncomfortable. And in the music business, discomfort is bad for business. But this story isn't just about the fall of a rapper. It's about something much deeper. Something rotting beneath the surface of the industry itself. What started as a personal tragedy has now opened a wound that runs through the heart of hip-hop. Duke the Jeweler's death, Taquari's shocking claims, and Boosie's fierce denial have all become more than headlines. They're a mirror to the culture, because beneath the beats, jewelry, and fame is a darker reality. The industry has always had a dangerous closeness to the streets. The dice game, the flashy watches, the heavy cash, none of it is new. It's a pattern we've seen time and again. But Duke's murder reignited the question: how safe are you when money, ego, and reputation collide in backrooms and dimly lit parking lots? And how far will people go to protect their image or destroy someone else's? Then there's the family aspect, something fans couldn't ignore. Watching a brother publicly accuse another of a deadly setup shattered the illusion that loyalty is unbreakable. In a world where loyalty is printed on t-shirts and dropped in every other verse, this was a brutal reminder that blood ties don't always mean trust. It also exposed how the industry can feed on its own. Taquari's interview wasn't just him venting, it became content. Clips were chopped up, thrown on YouTube, monetized, and debated by strangers. The trauma, the pain, the distrust, it all turned into algorithms and clickbait. And still, there's no resolution. No confession, no cleared names, just rumors, silence, and speculation. But maybe that's the real message in all of this. In the pursuit of fame and fortune, the lines between family, loyalty, and survival blur until you can't tell who's protecting you and who's setting the trap. And in Boosie's case, whether he's guilty or not may matter less than how many people believe he is. So now we're left with a puzzle made of broken trust, blurred loyalties, and unanswered questions. Duke the jeweler is gone. His killer still hasn't been brought to justice. And the man who was supposed to be closest to Boosie, the one who shared his blood, is now the loudest voice accusing him of betrayal. Taquari says he has proof. Boosie says it's all lies. And the internet, it doesn't know who to believe, but it's watching every move. In this story, there are no heroes, just a haunting truth. Sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from enemies, they come from home. Boosie may survive this, his career might bounce back, or it could be the beginning of a slow unraveling. Either way, the damage is done. And the real question that remains is this: if your own brother says you're guilty, does it even matter if you're not?